Okay, maybe 15 feet was ambitious. My arms strained against the nylon rope, knuckles white, feet digging into the dew-soaked grass of my own front lawn. The early morning sun was just peeking over the identical rooftops of Pleasant Valley Estates, casting long, slightly ominous shadows. One of those shadows belonged to me, the other significantly larger and more phallic. Shadow belonged to the wobbling behemoth currently trying to achieve low Earth orbit despite my best efforts. "Hold still, you magnificent bastard," I grunted, yanking hard on the tether. The magnificent bastard in question was essentially a gigantic inflatable hot dog. Picture the kind you see flapping listlessly outside a used car dealership, only bigger, browner, and sporting crudely painted-on floppy ears and a goofy, Sharpie-drawn smile that vaguely resembled my actual dog, Bartholomew. Barty, bless his furry, oversized heart, was currently on the porch, letting out confused but enthusiastic woofs at his airborne doppelganger. He probably thought it was the world's biggest chew toy. Smart Money said he wasn't wrong. On the side, in slightly smeared red paint, because, yes, painting after inflation wasn't my brightest moment, was a banner proclaiming, "Barty's #1 fan." Subtle? No. Hilarious? Absolutely. Necessary? Well, that depended on your definition of necessary and how much you disliked your neighbor. My definition, it turned out, was pretty broad. Just as I managed to wrestle a second anchor stake into the surprisingly resistant earth, the shriek came. It was a sound that could curdle milk at 50 paces, a banshee wail honed by years of complaining about recycling bin placement and lawn edging violations. "David! David Miller! What in the Sam Hill is that?" Showtime. I turned, adopting my most innocent expression, the one I usually saved for when Barty ate something expensive. Across the street, silhouetted against her perfectly beige house, stood Karen. Bathrobe cinched tight, hair in curlers that looked like medieval torture devices, phone already clamped to her ear like a vital organ. "Morning, Karen," I chirped, maybe a little too brightly. Just enjoying the beautiful sunrise and my new lawn art. Her eyes, narrowed to slits, scanned the towering tribute to processed meat and canine companionship. Her mouth opened and closed a few times, like a goldfish searching for the right combination of outrage and disbelief. 911? She squawked into the phone, her voice trembling with righteous fury. "Yes, it's an emergency, a real emergency this time. There's a monstrosity, a giant wiener, on my neighbor's lawn. It's lewd and enormous." I leaned against the surprisingly firm vinyl flank of the inflatable, crossing my arms. Barty let out another happy bark. Oh yeah, this was going to be good. This was exactly the kind of petty, over-the-top response her comment deserved. Because this whole thing, this 15-foot monument to absurdity, it all started a week ago, thanks to Karen, a rogue tennis ball, and my menacingly large best friend. 1 week earlier. The sun was warm, the sky was that perfect shade of suburban blue, and Barty was in heaven. Bartholomew Barty Higgins Miller, yes, he has a middle name, don't judge, is, objectively speaking, a large dog. Think small bear, but fluffier and significantly less likely to maul you for your picnic basket. He's a Newfoundland mix, mostly fluff, drool, and unconditional love, weighing in at a solid 160 pounds of pure, unadulterated good boy. We were engaged in his favorite pastime, fetch. Or, more accurately, Dave throws the ball, Barty lumbers after it with the grace of a furry tank, retrieves it, slimes it thoroughly, and repeats. He wasn't built for speed, but his enthusiasm was infectious. I launched the slobbery tennis ball in a high arc across my lawn. Barty, eyes locked on the prize, took off with surprising speed, his massive paws thundering on the grass. The ball, however, took an unfortunate bounce, skittering sideways, right onto the sacred ground. The hallowed, chemically treated, obsessively manicured turf belonging to Karen. Barty, bless his single-minded focus, didn't even register the transgression. He bounded onto the edge of her lawn, maybe 3 paw prints total, snatched the ball, and turned to trot back, tail wagging proudly. Before his 4th paw could even touch her precious fescue, the door across the street flew open. "Excuse me, excuse me!" Karen's voice sliced through the peaceful afternoon air. "Get that beast off my property! Now!" I sighed. Here we go. "Sorry, Karen," I called back, walking towards the property line. "Ball took a bad bounce. He was just getting it." Barty sat down obediently at my feet, looking confused, the slimy ball still firmly in his mouth. Karen marched towards us, arms crossed, face set in grim lines. "No harm? David, that dog is a menace. It's far too large for this neighborhood. Its sheer size is intimidating." I bit back the urge to point out that her prize-winning poodle, Fifi, was arguably more menacing, possessing the temperament of a caffeinated piranha. "He's a gentle giant, Karen. He wouldn't hurt a fly. Well, maybe if the fly was covered in peanut butter?" "Don't be facetious. He probably violates 17 HOA bylaws I haven't even written yet." She gestured wildly at Barty, who chose that moment to let out a soft, bewildered woof. "What if it decides my prize-winning petunias look like a snack? What then?" "He prefers actual snacks, Karen," I muttered, thinking guiltily of the entire pepperoni pizza I'd foolishly left cooling on the counter the day before, which Barty had inhaled in approximately 12 seconds. "Like, you know, food." "I heard that." Her eyes narrowed. "This is your final warning, David. Control that oversized animal, or I will take action. Find a smaller dog. Or move." "Move? Because my dog was too big?" The sheer audacity. The unmitigated Karen-ness of it all. Barty looked up at me. Big brown eyes, full of confusion, a string of drool dangling from his jowl. He nudged my hand with his massive head. Anger, hot and petty, simmered in my chest. Action? She wanted action, fine, but it wouldn't be Barty going anywhere. Later that evening, nursing a beer and my wounded pride, I vented to the source of the controversy. "Too big? Can you believe her, Barty?" I scratched his ears. He responded by leaning his entire body weight against my legs, nearly sending me tumbling off the sofa. "See? Perfectly reasonably sized. Practically lapdog material." Barty thumped his tail against the cushions, clearly agreeing. I scrolled aimlessly through my phone, half looking at funny dog videos, half fuming about Karen and her petunia paranoia. HOA rules. Oversized animal. Take action. The words looped in my head. My thumb paused over an ad. Not for dog toys or pizza deals. It was for a company called Big Inflate Co. Purveyors of custom inflatables. Giant gorillas for car lots, wacky waving arm guys, massive holiday decorations. An idea, stupid and brilliant and utterly ridiculous, sparked in my brain. "Too big, huh?" I murmured, looking from the phone screen to Barty, who was now snoring softly, his giant head resting on my knee. "She thinks you're too big? Oh, I'll show her too big." What was the most absurdly large, yet technically harmless thing I could erect on my lawn? Something that screamed suburban defiance, but couldn't actually get me arrested. Something iconic. Something maybe even a little tasty? My eyes landed on a stock image on the Big Inflate website. A classic, cheerful-looking inflatable hot dog, complete with a yellow mustard squiggle. Then I looked back at Barty. His fur was a deep, dark brown, almost black. He had floppy ears. He had a goofy, lovable expression. The gears didn't just turn, they practically stripped themselves. Barty, my boy, I whispered, a slow, maniacal grin spreading across my face. You're about to become a legend, a processed legend. The plan was perfect. It was stupid, it was expensive, it was everything I needed it to be. The phone consultation with Big Inflate Co. was an exercise in surrealism. I got connected to a guy named Stan, whose voice sounded like he gargled gravel and hadn't experienced joy since the Carter administration. Big Inflate, Stan speaking, he monotoned. Hi, Stan, I said, trying to sound like a normal, well-adjusted customer and not someone about to commission a 15-foot vinyl wiener dog. I'm interested in a custom inflatable for my front lawn. Dimensions? Design? Stan asked, devoid of inflection. 15 feet tall, I said. And the design, well, it's a hot dog. A pause. I could almost hear him mentally calculating the square footage of vinyl. Standard hot dog? Bun? Mustard squiggle? Yes, I confirmed. But, and this is the crucial part, Stan, I need it to evoke the essence of my dog. Silence. I pictured Stan blinking slowly on the other end. Evoke. The essence? Yeah, I said, warming to my theme. Like, can you paint on some floppy ears? Sort of droopy, you know? And maybe a little nub of a tail on the back end? Oh, and the sausage part. Can we make that kind of brownish-black like his fur? Stan sighed. It was a sound that carried the weight of 1,000 ridiculous customer requests. Sir, it's vinyl. We can print a high-resolution, photorealistic picture of your dog onto the hot dog shape if you want. No, Stan, that's too direct, I protested. It needs to be subtle, an homage, a giant, inflatable hot dog homage to Bartholomew. Another sigh, deeper this time. Right, floppy ears, brown wiener, nubtail, got it. That'll be an extra $500 for artistic interpretation. Sold, I practically shouted. When can I expect delivery? Custom job like this? 4 to 6 business days. Requires special pigment mixing for the brown wiener, Stan said, the verbal equivalent of an eye roll. And sir, just advice, anchor it well. 15 feet of vinyl catches a lot of wind. Don't worry, Stan, I assured him. I plan to. And that brought us back to the present. Me, the giant inflatable Barty dog, and Karen, still screeching into her phone while Officers Miller, no relation thankfully, and Chen pulled up in their cruiser, lights off, looking profoundly weary already. Morning, sir, ma'am, Officer Miller said, stepping out of the car. He adjusted his belt and took in the scene me, leaning casually against the inflatable, Barty wagging his tail on the porch, Karen vibrating with indignation. He squinted at the towering Frankfurter. We got a call about, a large... He paused, searching for the right word. Hot dog? It's obscene, Karen shrieked, finally lowering her phone. It's blocking the sun. It's probably attracting vermin. It's visually aggressive. I pushed myself off the vinyl. Obscene. Officer, it's merely a whimsical lawn decoration, a tribute to America's favorite encased meat. And, you know, I gestured between Barty, who offered a friendly woof, and the inflatable, my dog, Barty. See the resemblance? I pointed to the floppy, painted ears. It's uncanny, right? Officer Chen, younger and clearly struggling to maintain a professional demeanor, coughed, possibly to hide a laugh. Officer Miller just looked tired. Sir, is this thing properly secured? Rock solid, officer, I said, patting the taut vinyl. Used the extra long stakes Stan recommended. Aircraft-grade tethers, probably. And does it violate any city ordinances regarding height or placement? He continued, pulling out a small notepad. Aha, my moment. Glad you asked, I said, puffing my chest out slightly. I took the liberty of consulting the Pleasant Valley Municipal Code. Chapter 5, Section 3, Paragraph B, explicitly allows temporary decorative structures not exceeding 20 feet in height, provided they don't impede public right-of-way or obstruct traffic views. This beauty, I swept my arm dramatically, clocks in at a regulation-friendly 15 feet, and it's a good 3 feet back from the sidewalk. Fully compliant. Karen sputtered. It's intimidating. It's staring at my house. Officer Miller looked from Karen to the inflatable, then back again. Ma'am, with all due respect, it's an inflatable hot dog. It doesn't have eyes. He pointed towards the Sharpie smile. Those are painted on, and frankly, it looks more confused than intimidating. It's an eyesore, Karen insisted. It lowers property values. Ma'am, Officer Chen chimed in gently. As far as we can tell, no laws are being broken here. It's on his property, it's secured, and it meets the size requirements. Officer Miller nodded. Unless it poses an immediate safety hazard, our hands are tied. Sir, he turned back to me, try to keep the, wiener dog from causing any actual disturbances, okay? You have my word, officers, I said solemnly. Peaceful coexistence through superior inflatable lawn art. That's my motto. They exchanged a look that screamed, not paid enough for this, gave Karen a non-committal nod, and got back in their cruiser. As they drove away, I saw Officer Chen glance back in the rearview mirror, a definite smile playing on his lips. Karen glared at me, her face a mask of impotent rage. This isn't over, David Miller, she hissed before storming back into her perfectly beige house, slamming the door hard enough to rattle her wind chimes. I grinned, turning to pat the inflatable again. Hear that, Barty Tribute? Phase 1 complete. Barty barked from the porch, wagging his tail. Phase 2. Enduring the neighborhood fallout. The fallout wasn't so much fallout as it was a spectacle. Within hours, the giant inflatable hot dog of Pleasant Valley Estates was the talk of the town, or at least our little corner of it. The reactions were mixed, leaning heavily towards bewildered amusement. Kids dragged their parents over, pointing and giggling. "Mommy, look! It's the hot dog!" shouted little Timmy from down the street, his face pressed against his minivan window. Teenagers, naturally, thought it was the height of ironic genius. Phones were out constantly. Selfies were taken. By lunchtime, #Giant Wiener Dog and #Barty Tribute were trending on the local neighborhood Facebook group, interspersed with blurry photos taken from various angles. Chad and Brad, the local skate punks who usually just practiced ollies in the church parking lot, rolled by slowly, giving me solemn nods of approval. "Dude," Chad said, executing a wobbly kick turn, "that's epic, pure legend." Not everyone was amused, of course. Mr. Henderson from 2 doors down, a man whose personality was as gray as his cardigan, peered at it over his meticulously trimmed hedge, frowning. "You know, David," he called over later while pretending to inspect his sprinklers, "some of us are trying to sell our houses in this economy. A 15-foot sausage doesn't exactly scream curb appeal." "Think of it as a landmark, Mr. Henderson," I replied cheerfully. "Potential buyers can't miss it. Turn left at the Giant Wiener. House is 2 down on the right." He just shook his head and retreated indoors. Someone, presumably one of Karen's few allies, or maybe Karen herself using a burner mailbox, left a passive-aggressive note tucked under my welcome mat. "Concerned Neighbor Committee finds your lawn display distasteful and detrimental to property values. Please consider removal for the good of the community." I considered framing it. My immediate neighbors, the Garcias, thankfully found the whole thing hilarious. Maria Garcia stopped by while walking her beagle, Paco. "Dave, ay Dios mío, what have you done?" she asked, laughing. "Carlos saw it this morning and thought he was still dreaming." Paco, meanwhile, was sniffing suspiciously at one of the anchor ropes. "Just a little artistic expression, Maria," I said. "A statement piece." "It's a statement, all right," she chuckled, shaking her head. "Karen must be having kittens. Or plotting my demise," I added. "Either way keeps things interesting." Even Barty seemed to enjoy the notoriety. He'd sit on the porch for hours, watching the people go by, occasionally letting out a regal woof, as if acknowledging his inflatable effigy. He didn't seem confused anymore, just vaguely proud, like he'd commissioned it himself. Life with a giant inflatable hot dog on your lawn, it turned out, was never dull. But I had a nagging feeling. Was it enough? Could it be more? The nagging feeling coalesced a few days later when I noticed a slight sagging near one of the painted-on ears. A leak? Sabotage? Or just the structural limitations of giant inflatable meat products? Probably the latter. But where's the fun in that? I called Stan at Big Inflate Company. Big Inflate, Stan speaking. Same monotone. Some things never change. "Stan, my man. Dave Miller here. Got a slight issue with the Barty tribute." A pause. I could almost hear him accessing my file. The one likely marked Wiener Dog guy, proceed with caution. "The hot dog homage?" "The very same. There's a bit of deflation happening near the left ear region. And while you're here, I was thinking about potential upgrades. Phase 2, you know?" Another pause, longer this time. "Upgrades?" "Yeah," I said, pacing my living room. Barty watched me, head cocked. "I'm thinking internal lighting. You know, give it a nice, warm, inviting glow at night. Maybe some subtle, low-wattage LEDs. Lighting? Inside the flammable vinyl casing? Exactly. And maybe, just maybe, a small, motion-activated speaker? Nothing too loud, just a little something. Could we rig it to occasionally bark? Or maybe sizzle?" The silence on the other end was profound. I think I might have actually broken Stan. "Sir," he finally said, his voice strained, "you want the 15-foot hot dog to bark?" "Yeah, you know, for ambiance. Realism." "Sir," Stan said, sounding like he was speaking through gritted teeth, "adding unauthorized electronics voids the warranty. It likely violates several fire codes. It could potentially turn your lawn art into a 15-foot vinyl firework. We can patch the leak. That is it?" I sighed dramatically. "Fine, Stan, fine. Just patch the leak. But make the patch majestic. Blend it seamlessly." "Majestic hot dog patch," Stan muttered, the sound barely audible. "Right. I'll send Gary out tomorrow afternoon. He specializes in majestic." Click. Okay, so barking and illumination were out. But the leak needed fixing. And Gary, specialist in majestic patches, was on his way. My commitment to the bit remained strong, even if Stan didn't appreciate my artistic vision. Gary arrived the next day. He was a lanky guy with a tool belt full of vinyl patches and an air of quiet resignation. He wordlessly located the leak, applied a patch with surprising dexterity, and gave the inflatable a final, critical look. "Majestic enough for you?" he asked, his first words since arriving. "It's adequate, Gary," I conceded. He shrugged and left. The patch held, but Karen wasn't letting up. If the cops couldn't help her, she'd resort to the next best thing, the mighty, often imaginary power of the Homeowners Association. Which, in Pleasant Valley Estates, basically meant Karen and her collection of laminated rule sheets. She ambushed me a few days later while I was taking out the recycling bins, carefully placed exactly 3 inches from the curb, as per her previous memo. "David, we need to talk." She marched across the street, waving a sheaf of papers like a battle standard. Fifi the poodle yapped aggressively from her arms. "Always a pleasure, Karen," I said, leaning against my bin. What fresh hell brings you here today? The Homeowners Association bylaws, she declared triumphantly. I've been reviewing them. Article 7, subsection C, paragraph 4. She held up a paper, squinting at it. It clearly states that all lawn decorations must be tasteful and in keeping with community standards. I peered at the giant inflatable hot dog, currently gleaming majestically, thanks, Gary, in the afternoon sun. Taste is subjective, Karen. I find Barty tribute quite appetizing. As for community standards, who defines those? You? It's also a safety hazard, she countered, clearly moving down her list of pre-prepared grievances. What if it deflates suddenly in a strong wind and traps a small child underneath? It's filled with air, Karen, not malice, I sighed. And as I told the officers, it's tethered with aircraft-grade cable. Probably. Besides, most kids seem to love it. I've documented its negative impact, she insisted, shuffling her papers. Mrs. Henderson's cat, Fluffernutter, hasn't been seen outdoors since it went up. Coincidence? I think not. Mrs. Henderson's cat was approximately 19 years old and spent 98% of its life sleeping under Mrs. Henderson's prize-winning azaleas. Correlation doesn't equal causation, Karen, I said patiently. Maybe Fluffernutter is just intimidated by its sheer flavor. Or maybe he's napping, again. And furthermore, she pressed on, ignoring me, it violates the visual harmony clause. It clashes horribly with my petunias. Visual harmony? Is that even a real clause? I asked. Look, Karen, it's temporary art. Lighten up. Temporary? How temporary? She demanded. I shrugged. Indefinitely temporary? She let out a frustrated groan. I am lodging a formal complaint. I have photographic evidence. She waved a blurry photo that mostly showed her own thumb. And a petition. She produced another sheet, signed only by K. Johnson and Fifi by proxy. Impressive, I deadpanned. You'll be hearing from my Inflatable's legal team. She stormed off again, muttering about injunctions and aesthetic violations. The HOA warfare had begun. Little did I know things were about to escalate far beyond laminated bylaws. It was the hashtag that did it. #GiantWienerDog. Somehow, it escaped the confines of the neighborhood Facebook group and caught the attention of Brenda Fresco, intrepid reporter for Channel 6 Action News and seeker of all things quirky and clickable. I was watering my non-prize-winning petunias. Barty tribute cast too much shade for anything fancy. When the news van pulled up. White, emblazoned with the Channel 6 logo, satellite dish on top. Brenda Fresco herself, microphone in hand, cameraman in tow, hopped out with predatory cheerfulness. Mr. Miller, Dave Miller, she called out, beaming. Brenda Fresco, Channel 6 News, we heard about your unique lawn display. Oh, crap. This was bigger than Stan, bigger than Gary, bigger even than Karen's imaginary HOA clauses. This was local news. Yeah, that's me, I said, trying to look nonchalant while frantically wondering if I had any weird stains on my t-shirt. Fantastic, Brenda enthused. We're doing a segment on unusual neighborhood happenings, and well, this certainly qualifies. Mind telling our viewers a bit about Frank? She gestured towards Barty Tribute with her microphone. His name, I corrected, puffing my chest out slightly, feeling a strange surge of performative pride, is Barty's Tribute, and he represents freedom. Where was this coming from? Freedom from arbitrary size restrictions, freedom from negativity. He's a beacon of hope. And processed meat. Nailed it. Brenda's smile widened. This was gold, Jerry, gold. A beacon of hope. I love it. And your neighbor, a Miss Karen Johnson, claims it's an eyesore and a violation of community standards? Some people just can't handle this much joy, Brenda, I said gravely, looking directly into the camera. They fear the Frankfurter. They resent its bold, unapologetic presence. But Barty Tribute stands tall, a symbol for large dogs and lawn art enthusiasts everywhere. Right on cue, Karen's front door burst open. He's lying! It's violating zoning code 7B, and it smells faintly of vinyl when the sun hits it, she yelled, trying to edge her way into the camera shot, Fifi yapping in her arms. The cameraman expertly kept her just out of frame. Brenda, a true professional, didn't miss a beat. Strong opinions on both sides. We'll have more on the great hot dog debate tonight at 6. Back to you, Chuck. She gave me a dazzling smile and a thumbs up, then hopped back in the van. As it pulled away, I saw Karen standing on her lawn, fists clenched, looking utterly defeated by the power of local news soundbites. I looked at Barty Tribute, gleaming under the afternoon sun. I looked at Barty, snoozing peacefully on the porch. I had become a minor local celebrity's oddity, the hot dog guy. My life had taken a truly bizarre turn, and something told me it wasn't over yet. The news segment aired. Apparently, I came across as charmingly eccentric. While Karen's brief, angry cameo was less flattering, the #GiantWienerDog hashtag exploded locally. People started driving by slowly, snapping pictures. Someone even left a 6-pack of craft beer on my porch with a note. "Stay strong, hot dog guy." Karen, predictably, doubled down. If public opinion and HOA bylaws wouldn't work, she'd go back to the police, armed with new, more desperate complaints. The flashing blue and red lights reflecting off my bedroom ceiling woke me around 11 p.m. a few nights later. Seriously? I stumbled downstairs and opened the door to find Officers Miller and Chen looking even more exhausted than before. Officer Miller pinched the bridge of his nose. "Dave," he sighed. "We're back." "Evening, officers," I said, trying for cheerfulness despite the late hour. "Midnight snack run? I think I have some leftover pizza. Oh, wait." Barty had probably eaten that too. "Not exactly," Officer Chen said dryly. "We have reports of, excessive illumination and un-K9-like noises." I blinked. "Excessive illumination? I haven't added any lights. Stan vetoed that. And noises? Barty Tribute is as silent as the grave. A delicious vinyl grave." "It barked at me," Karen shrieked from her porch across the street. She was back in the bathrobe, wielding a flashlight like a weapon. "I have witnesses." She gestured dramatically towards her collection of garden gnomes. "Norman heard it." "That was Barty, officer," I explained patiently. "The actual dog. He sometimes barks at squirrels, or particularly aggressive shadows. The inflatable, however, is mute." Officer Miller ran a hand over his face. "Look, Dave, this is getting ridiculous. The station's getting calls constantly. The news segment didn't exactly help calm things down. People are treating this like a roadside attraction. Isn't there some way to de-escalate the hot dog situation?" "De-escalate? After all this?" "De-escalate?" I repeated, channeling my inner art critic. "Sir, this is performance art. A commentary on suburban ennui. You wouldn't ask Picasso to de-escalate Guernica just because some neighbors found it a bit much, would you?" Officer Chen muttered something to Officer Miller that sounded suspiciously like, "Pretty sure Picasso never painted a 15-foot wiener." Officer Miller sighed again, a sound that contained the existential weariness of the entire universe. "Okay, look, technically, still no laws broken. But Dave, people are losing their minds over this thing. Karen's threatening lawsuits. The mayor called the chief. Just try to keep it down? No barking, no lights, no whatever else you might be planning." "My lips are sealed, officers," I said, giving them a mock salute. "The hot dog rests. They left, shaking their heads. Karen shot me one last venomous glare before retreating inside. I looked up at Barty Tribute, standing silent and majestic under the moonlight. Performance art? Maybe. Hilarious suburban spite? Definitely. But Officer Miller was right. Things were escalating, and giant inflatable objects, much like suburban feuds, have a tendency to eventually blow up. The blowing up happened, quite literally, the following Saturday. The day started ominously. The sky was a bruised purple gray, and the wind had a nasty bite to it. Weather reports mumbled about severe thunderstorms rolling in later. "Might want to deflate the big guy, Dave," Carlos Garcia called over the fence as he battened down his patio furniture. "Looks like it's gonna get hairy." "Nah," I yelled back over the rising wind. "Stan used aircraft-grade cable, remember? Probably. Barty Tribute can handle a little breeze." Famous last words. By mid-afternoon, the little breeze had turned into a full-blown gale. Rain lashed down sideways. Tree branches swayed violently. And Barty Tribute? Barty Tribute was straining against his tethers like a giant vinyl kite, trying desperately to achieve liftoff. I watched nervously from my living room window as the 15-foot hot dog bucked and swayed, the wind catching its broad side, putting immense strain on the anchor points. Barty, sensibly, was hiding under the kitchen table. Then, with a sickening twang, one of the main front tethers snapped. The inflatable lurched violently, whipping backwards before surging forward again, now dangerously unstable. It leaned precariously towards Karen's house, the painted-on floppy ears seeming to flap menacingly close to her prize-winning petunias and, more alarmingly, her roofline. "Oh, hell no," I muttered. Visions of insurance claims, lawsuits, and Karen's unbearable "I told you so" face flashed before my eyes. There was no choice. Donning a raincoat that offered roughly zero protection against the deluge, I plunged out the door into the tempest. The wind nearly ripped the door from my hand. Rain stung my face. "Barty Tribute, hold on!" I yelled uselessly at the flailing inflatable. I scrambled towards the remaining front anchor, trying to grab the flailing broken rope. The wind howled. The inflatable surged again, yanking the anchor stake partially out of the soggy ground. It was going to break free entirely. Desperate, I lunged, grabbing onto the main body of the inflatable itself, trying to use my own weight to hold it down. It was like wrestling a slippery, air-filled whale. The wind buffeted us both. I slid several feet across the muddy lawn. "Need help!" I gasped, spotting Carlos Garcia peering out his window. He saw my plight, disappeared for a second, then reappeared, struggling into his own raincoat. Together, soaked to the bone, we fought the giant wiener dog from hell. We managed to grab the broken rope, loop it around the base, and desperately try to re-secure it to anything solid. A nearby maple tree seemed the best bet. Just as we were wrestling the rope around the trunk, Karen's front door opened. She stood there, phone in hand, of course, filming us. Filming me specifically, plastered in mud, locked in a losing battle with my own creation as it threatened to demolish her landscaping. "Having fun, David," she yelled over the wind, a triumphant smirk on her face despite the rain plastering her hair to her scalp. "Just securing my performance art." I grunted back, finally getting a knot tied around the tree. The inflatable strained, but it held. For now. Carlos and I stumbled back, gasping for breath, looking like drowned rats who'd just gone 10 rounds with a bouncy castle. Barty Tribute swayed drunkenly, tethered front and back, but no longer threatening immediate destruction. "Aircraft grade, huh?" Carlos panted, wiping rain from his eyes. "Maybe Stan meant model aircraft," I wheezed. The storm raged on, but the immediate crisis was averted. The giant inflatable hot dog was battered, muddy, and looked slightly traumatized, but it was still standing. Sort of. And Karen had video evidence of the whole humiliating ordeal. This feud had definitely reached its peak absurdity. The storm passed, leaving behind broken branches, overflowing gutters, and one very soggy, slightly listing inflatable hot dog. The video Karen took inevitably ended up on the neighborhood Facebook group, captioned, "Lawn art menace nearly causes catastrophe. Told you so, ban the wiener." The near disaster, coupled with the video and Karen's relentless campaign, finally forced the issue. I got a certified letter summoning me to an informal neighborhood mediation at the Town Hall Annex. Attendance mandatory. Subject: the inflatable incident. I arrived to find a small conference room occupied by Karen, looking smug. A weary-looking town official named Brenda. Not Brenda Fresco. Sadly, this one looked like she subsisted on municipal codes and regret. And, surprisingly, Officer Miller, presumably representing the "we're tired of dealing with this" faction. "Mr. Miller, Miss Johnson," official Brenda began, steepling her fingers. "We're here because the situation on Elm Street has become untenable. Specifically," she gestured vaguely towards me, "the giant inflatable hot dog." "Barty Tribute," I corrected automatically. Brenda sighed. "Mr. Miller, while technically compliant with certain ordinances, the structure has caused significant neighborhood disruption, culminating in yesterday's near-miss incident during the storm. Frankly, it's a public nuisance." "It brings joy," I protested weakly. "It's whimsical." "It brings flies and lowers property values and almost took out my prize-winning petunias," Karen countered, slapping her hand on the table. Okay, official Brenda cut in, holding up a hand. "Clearly, the giant inflatable hot dog cannot remain indefinitely. It's time for a resolution." Officer Miller cleared his throat. "From our perspective, we just want the calls to stop. It's tying up resources." I looked at Karen. She looked at me. An unspoken understanding passed between us. She wanted the hot dog gone. I wanted her to leave Barty alone. Maybe there was a deal to be made. "All right," I said slowly, leaning forward. "How about a compromise?" All eyes turned to me. "I will agree to voluntarily deflate and remove Barty Tribute." I paused for dramatic effect, ignoring Karen's gasp of triumph. If," I continued, pointing a finger at her, "Karen agrees, publicly and permanently, that Bartholomew is a perfectly reasonably sized dog for this neighborhood, poses no threat whatsoever, and she will cease all complaints regarding his size, presence, or general existence." Karen's eyes narrowed. She chewed her lip. The hot dog gone forever, versus admitting defeat on the dog issue? "And," she added, her voice sharp, "you'll clean up any residual vinyl bits or anchor holes left behind?" "Every last bit," I promised. "Lawn restored to its former non-inflatable glory." She looked at official Brenda, then at Officer Miller, then back at me. She took a deep breath. "Deal," she said through gritted teeth. Official Brenda looked relieved. "Excellent, we'll draft a simple agreement." We signed the papers. The great hot dog war of Pleasant Valley Estates was officially over. I had lost the inflatable, but I'd won the war for Barty's right to exist in all his oversized glory. A few days later, the lawn looked strangely empty. Gary from Big Inflate Company had come by, at my expense, naturally, to professionally deflate and haul away the remains of Barty Tribute. He'd even filled in the anchor holes. Majestic work, Gary. I was out front, tossing the infamous tennis ball for Barty. He lumbered after it, staying well within the confines of our yard this time, maybe sensing the fragile peace treaty. He brought the ball back, dropped the slimy thing at my feet, and looked up expectantly. Just then, Karen emerged from her house to retrieve her mail. She walked down her driveway, paused, and looked across the street. Our eyes met. She gave a stiff, almost imperceptible nod. Then, pointedly, her gaze slid right past Barty, massive and fluffy beside me, as if he were completely invisible. She retrieved her mail and went back inside without a single comment about his size. Victory. Sweet, slightly anticlimactic victory. I knelt down and gave Barty a huge hug, burying my face in his thick fur. He responded with a happy sigh and a slobbery lick to my cheek. Okay, so maybe 15 feet of inflatable processed meat wasn't the most mature solution, I admitted to him, scratching behind his ears. But hey, the lawn's quiet, you're happy. And Karen hasn't mentioned dog dimensions in 72 hours straight. I call that a win. I stood up, tossing the ball again. Life was returning to its normal, mundane suburban rhythm. But something had shifted. I'd fought the law, or at least the HOA. And, in a weird way, I'd won. Though as I watched Barty trot happily across the now empty lawn, a thought occurred to me. Big Inflate Company probably did other holidays, right? I wonder if Stan did custom Thanksgiving turkeys. Maybe something tasteful. 10 feet, tops,